Dave is an accomplished leader with over 20 years in education and student engagement. He excels in mentoring, managing large-scale events, and fostering inclusion. As a certified strength strategy coach and an advisor, he has trained student leaders, guided orientation programs, and driven impactful diversity and integrity initiatives at multiple universities. I have personally benefited from his Clifton Strengths coaching and have worked with him in the past at BYU, Idaho in student support. Please welcome Coach Dave. Welcome, Dave.
Hi,
Glad
excited
to
to
have
be
you
here,
on the
Noah. Thanks
podcast.
for the invite.
Of course. Thank you for being willing to book some time. I know you're a busy man doing lots of very important things, and you're working at BYU, Provo, correct? Brigham Young University, Provo. Yeah,
I work in their
fantastic.
Student Leadership and Connections, or the Student Connection and Leadership Center right now.
Wow, that's amazing. And you've worked at multiple universities. Obviously, like we met at BYU, Idaho, and were able to do a lot of wonderful things there. Tell me some of the other places
And
that you've worked at.
for higher education, a little bit
Yeah,
at Utah State University.
very nice.
But the beginning of my career, I was an elementary school teacher, which I
Wow,
absolutely loved.
that's
So
fantastic.
yeah, and it's been amazing. Yeah, this journey that I'm on and seeing the path that I'm taking step by step and all the great things that come and yeah, bless my life.
That's really cool. You have quite the story, and I want to dive into that. So I'd love to hear your story from whatever angle you think will help people understand who you are the best.
Okay. Well, let me see. How do I want to get started?
You started in elementary school.
I
Maybe
did start
explain
as an
that to me.
elementary school teacher, and that was not originally my original intent
Mm,
growing up. You know how when you're growing up, you always have these big dreams of what you want to become.
yeah.
And I always wanted to be either a marine biologist and to, yeah, be able to work in the ocean growing up in California. That was one of my passions. The other thing that I was looking into was interior design. I love spatial relationships and I love working with color and textures. And I thought, oh,
Mm,
that would be a blast to be able to do. So I started
cool.
actually my schooling in interior design,
Okay.
but I had an experience where for 2 years I had the opportunity to go and serve people and provide service and to do a little teaching. And that's where I found my love for
Yeah.
teaching. And the thing that I love the most about it is being able to help others make connections for themselves and to see what they're even capable of. And that's what excited me about education. From there, I actually taught for about 10 years in the elementary school. And then I went to go teach at the college level. And it was during that time I kind of had I want to say midlife crisis, but
Sure.
I was thinking that it was time maybe to try something a little bit different. And
Okay.
so that's when I jumped over into student affairs.
Mm,
And I was also trying to figure out who I was. That's funny
mm,
because it's an ongoing thing. I mean,
yeah.
discovering ourselves. And so I was fortunate to have a colleague who had introduced me to Clifton Strengths and had me take the assessment and began coaching me. And the funny thing is when I first got the assessment, the results were a little surprising to me. But once I was coached and we took a deep dive in, it was basically giving me the language to share what I've always known about myself, of the things that I love, how I go about doing things. And so it was exciting. So then I went through and became a certified coach through strength strategy and in student affairs while working with student leaders. I implemented it with each of you. I had the
Yeah.
opportunity for each of you to take the test and sit down and go through and just basically illuminate so you guys could see how
Mm,
awesome you are and how unique and the things that you bring that only you can bring. And so that's what I love. And that's why I continue to do it today.
that's amazing. And your positivity is really contagious. It's a very true part of at least who you are from the outside observations. Like you're just so positive. You bring in a lot of light and charisma, and I've really appreciated having worked with you in the past, seeing that. But then also just like whenever I talk to you, you're just always the happiest person I know. And I think it's beautiful that you've been able to rely on your strengths. And I think that's a very different mentality than is often taught. Like you and I were talking just a little bit earlier before we started doing recording this podcast about I'm in an MBA program. I really enjoy that. I enjoy pursuing that education. But there's definitely a sense that you need to find all your flaws and root them out because that's how you become better is you just destroy your weaknesses and there's no talk on, well, what are you actually really good at already? So maybe explain to me that a little bit more on how finding your strengths not only was illuminating, but how that impacted you.
You're so right on. So just a little bit of context.
Yeah.
So Clifton Strengths was started by a gentleman by the name of Don Clifton. He was a psychologist, and the exact thing that you had just brought up, the question is always, what's wrong and how do I fix it, especially within
Mm,
ourselves? He saw in like the business world, it was always the feedback was, well, here's your weaknesses. Let's make goals to help you improve and become better. And so he took the premise or the thought and flipped it and said, instead of
mm,
asking what's wrong, why don't we focus on what's right with
mm,
people and focus on, the things that they do well instead of
mm,
focusing on the things that they don't. And so thus began like over 50 years worth of research that Don Clifton did.
mm,
And through studying leaders from all different fields, whether it be business, education, medicine, and just seeing what phenomenal things people do naturally
mm,
and how it has blessed their lives. And he also noticed the patterns that those leaders that focused on what they did well had that much greater impact versus those that were always trying to fix what was not going well or what they did not
mm,
do well. And so that's kind of a little bit about how Clifton Strengths came to be. 2001 is when the assessment started out as Strengths Finder, yeah, is now
nice.
Clifton Strengths, renamed, came to
Okay.
be, and like over 30 million people have taken this assessment. The thing about this assessment that I absolutely love, it's a performance-based assessment. It's based
Mm,
on talents, not so much personality.
mm,
And it's open to personalized, individualized understanding.
mm,
So it doesn't necessarily like pigeonhole you.
yeah.
As a matter of fact, the strengths, the 34 strengths, are themes. And if you think of
Mm,
a theme, it has a broad interpretation. So someone can have the strength theme of like relator,
mm,
which is a common thing or a commonality of relator is having uh, few but deep relationships with people. They go for the depth and they're really close. How they do that is very individualized based upon the person,
huh.
because what will shape that will be their other strengths that come into play, along with their personal experiences, culture. It kind of forms this lens. And
Mm,
so if you think about that, there's not one other person in this world that has the same exact experience lens as you do. So
mm.
therefore, it makes it even that much more incredible.
Fantastic. I feel like you can have a podcast on that alone. Like you'd have multiple episodes just discussing strengths, and maybe we'll have to do that in the future. But that's really cool. I appreciate you walking through that. I know I've benefited from that coaching when we worked together, and you mentioned you implemented it in the team, and you absolutely did. And that, for me at least, has really stuck with me. Have found that trying to focus more on strengths rather than just dedicating time to weaknesses, like I'm technically being taught to in some extent, and just focusing more on the strengths I found it not only saves time for me, but it also saves a lot of energy. And I'm able to better recognize I actually am not good at that. And instead of being like hyper aware or personally offended, I'm like, no, like that's okay because I'm really good at something else and I'm going to focus my time on that so that it has the most amount of impact rather than just not wasting, but spending a lot of time and energy trying to f even out everything. So I really appreciate that. I think it's a valuable message to share. I'm curious though, do you feel that like energy like that's part of this discussion? Like how do you maintain, save energy or how you use it as you're looking at strengths?
Uh, can you rephrase that for, or say that
Yeah,
again for me now, just so I
absolutely.
could better grasp it?
Yeah, it's I asked it in a very confusing way. So of
No,
course,
you're good.
do you feel that focusing on strengths rather than weaknesses saves time and energy?
Most definitely. The reason being is strengths is based upon natural talents.
Mm,
It's about how you go about doing things. And we're not talking about talents like, if you're good athletically or, whatever particular hobby or interest that you may have, but we're talking about when we say talent or natural strengths, these are things about natural reoccurring patterns that you see in your thoughts,
mm,
how you feel, and even how you behave. Matter of fact,
mm,
they're so natural that you don't even think about them. You don't have
mm,
to put forth that much effort to even like activate it or to get it going because it's just such a
yeah.
natural part of who you are.
Mm,
And that makes it interesting because there's times where we think it's so natural for us that we naturally assume that it must be so natural for other people. And as you mentioned
mm,
earlier, that's where we could get frustrating. It's like, what do you not understand, or why are you not getting this? I thought
mm,
everyone
mm.
knows how to do this, or
Yeah.
why, or moving forward, yeah, creating that momentum. But that's not the case because again, like I said,
Mm,
each of us has that unique lens.
mm. You know that really reminds me of something actually that I talked about on the first episode of this podcast, which is like a commonality fallacy where you think everyone thinks like you, everyone knows what you know, and if they're not next to you, you figure they're not doing anything. It's just like that fallacy, like you're saying, it's like you over assume what makes you unique, and to some extent, that takes away your individualism.
It totally does. And
Mm,
here's the other thing, as you were mentioning earlier, during my coaching certification, one of the tools that I was taught, which I absolutely love, is called the Strategic Interdependence Model.
mm,
And Deanna Murphy, who created Strength Strategy, had based this off the work of Dr. Stephen R. Covey and the Seven
mm.
Habits about
Okay.
being a level of dependency versus independency, interdependency, and going along with this this topic of strengths.
Yeah.
One of the things about getting to a level of interdependency where there's synergy and co-creating and these incredible things that are taking place between you and others, it takes a little bit of being confident in who we are and what
Mm,
we can offer and not be intimidated and try to hide it or shy away from it, but also being vulnerable. So, confident vulnerability, vulnerable in the fact of admitting, I'm not good in this particular area. I struggle when it comes to, doing X, Y, and Z, and therefore I need
mm,
help. And so it's that idea of, yeah, I want to embrace what I know I can do and I could do
yeah.
well. But I also want to acknowledge and again being interdependent with others, relying on others to help me
Mm,
to be able to move forward and create that momentum that we're both seeking for.
that's powerful. I don't know if you remember this, but when we worked together years ago, you gave a training on that specifically to the team, and you talked about interdependence. And for me at that time, like I hadn't developed hardly any emotional intelligence quite yet. And it was revolutionary for me. And so I went home and talked to my now wife, Mary, and I said, "Hey, I just learned this really cool concept of interdependence and and I think it could really help our relationship." And to this day, some of the things that we were able to figure out based off of that idea in like our personal relationship have been incredibly impactful. And I think it's like interdependence is just not talked about very often. Like you have people that are like, oh, you don't want to be codependent, which is true. And people that are like, I'm 100% independent. I don't need anybody, no other human. I'm a lone wolf. And I feel like there's dangers to both extremes. So if you were talking to someone, like say like Noah in the past, who's like, holy cow, this is a brand new concept. How would you explain it to someone who's used to thinking he's a lone wolf?
One of the things I talk about, again, going back to that particular model and even
Yeah.
off of Dr. Covey's work, is the interesting thing about being the lone wolf or being very independent. I
Mm,
mean, there is a natural progression of learning that happens. You think about, when babies are born, they're very dependent. They
mm,
rely on others to be able to help them in order to survive. But, as you have your little ones, you've watched them,
yeah.
and they get to that stage of independence. Like, for example, when they don't want you to hold their hand, they're trying to walk and you're like, no, let me hold your hand so you don't get hurt. And they're like, no, and they're crying or whatever else. And that's important in our personal growth and as
Mm,
well. It's when we choose to stay there the long term is when
mm,
we start seeing some of those effects that can really have negative impact, not only on ourselves and our mental well-being, but even in our relationships around with other people. If you're always at a state of independence, you run the risk of burning yourself out because you're trying to
mm,
do everything and be everything. And there's
mm.
just some things that takes a lot more effort than other things. Again, this is that whole
Yeah.
basis of what our natural talents are. The interesting thing is if you're always at a state of independence, then those around you will either, it can foster dependence in them, in the
Mm,
relationship, in the fact that they're like, well, I'm not going to move forward or whatever else. I'll
mm,
wait until you tell me what you need from me,
mm,
instead of being able to go to a place where both are able to say, this is what each of us can give. But here's the beautiful thing too is if you think of our talents, our strengths as like a well in the ground, as a well gives water, it has to receive water. Our natural strengths and talents also have needs. And it's when our needs are not met that we hit those levels of frustration, that we get really upset with other people and
mm.
about other behaviors. But once we understand what our personal needs are,
Yeah.
then this is where we could go to that level of interdependence. We can ask and say, okay, I get this. This is what I need in order to get the best of me. And is this something that you can help me with?
Mm,
And of course, most people are like, yeah, I didn't know that. I totally, want to give you whatever that you can to be successful. Almost one of the universal needs that we have is to be able to contribute. As human
mm,
beings, we want to give and contribute to society, to some cause, to other people. And we understand in order to do that, we also have to create the conditions where those can take place and happen. And so that's where, the whole idea of being able to ask. So being a lone wolf, yeah, you could do it and you're going to feel successful, which is great. You're going to have growth. But I know over the long run, you're also
mm,
going to experience some burnout and some stress. And there's the fear of alienating yourself from others
mm,
because the message you're given is, I don't need you. I can do it on my own.
mm.
So, but like I said,
Wow. Yeah.
short term, yeah, there's definitely benefits. Going into a brand new job, you're going to be dependent. You're going to have to learn, and be shown the steps and the skills. And then there's that level of independency and let me try it on my own and,
Mm,
experience my own failures to learn from. But then
mm.
after that, you want to shoot for that interdependency.
Powerful stuff. Thank you for explaining that and walking through it. That's very helpful as a young dad, and I have two young kids, as you know, and sometimes it can be hard to have the kid smack my hand away and be like, I don't want to hold your hand, Dad. I was like, okay, but it's really an important step. And I think as a parent, it's easy to see how important that is for them to be able to be self-sustaining. But I appreciate how you explained the lone wolf mentality and how it can be damaging. I've recently come to a spot where I've realized that I can't be all things at all times to all people. And like the people pleaser in me has had to do a lot of growing and maturing to set boundaries and to be willing to say, okay, I can't do this, I can't do that. I'm not good at this, I am good at that. And I found a lot of fulfillment in that. But I have a question I gotta ask. Do you feel that needs, like you were saying, you need to be able to communicate those needs, know those needs. Do you feel that needs and strengths are connected somehow?
Oh, very much so. Like the example I was giving of the well, they are
Hmm.
so like mirror image. Like
Hmm.
the things that you do well are usually also the things that you need. So, like, for
Interesting.
example, someone that is really good at like empathy,
Hmm.
of being able to truly listen to what others have to say, to sit in that space with other people and have that connection.
Hmm.
That person also needs that from other people.
Hmm.
There's going to be times when they just want someone to sit with them,
Hmm.
and be in that space. And so, yeah, it's very much a reciprocal relationship. And that's like, and this is how when you notice is when your needs are not met, again, if you're always at independence or even at always at dependence
Hmm.
and you're not able to contribute or you're contributing so much of trying to do everything beyond, on your own, then those basic needs that really put you in your A plus zone, your flow zone,
Yeah.
they're not happening.
Hmm.
And as a result, as they're not happening, then that's where, like I said, the frustration comes in. You could be frustrated with yourself and thinking,
Hmm.
why can I not do this? You know, why can I
Hmm.
not stay up all night like I used to when I was in college? Why can I not, figure out how to, balance, my checkbook? Not that people use checkbooks, but like balance my budget or whatever,
Yeah.
and we think, why is it so easy for so many others and it's not for me?
Hmm.
Well, again, it's looking again at what are your natural reoccurring patterns that you have. I'm not good at, finding patterns, numerical patterns, and
Hmm.
being able to put things together. I'm a mess. I'm just grateful that my wife is someone who is really
Hmm.
talented in that particular area.
Hmm.
And I'll admit it. I mean, I could sit and try to work my way through it, but the whole time that I'm going to be doing it, it's putting me in my depletion zone. It doesn't give me
Hmm.
energy. It drains me, actually.
Hmm.
Doesn't give me fulfillment. I'm not going to walk away going, yay. It's just going to be
Yeah.
like, okay. And then I dread the next time that it's got to be done.
Hmm.
But for other people who have those particular talents and strengths, they love it. They feed
Hmm.
off of it. They're like, give it to me. As a matter of fact, they
Hmm.
don't feel like they're putting forth as much effort because it comes again so naturally to them.
Wow. It almost feels like that's the key to avoiding burnout is being able to do what you're good at.
Exactly. And
Hmm.
advocating.
Hmm.
So much of like mental health,
Yeah.
of being able to advocate for yourself and be able to, as Brene Brown talks about, being vulnerable and saying, I can't
Yeah.
do this, or I need this. I need this time. Um, because if you give it to me, I guarantee you what you're going to get in return is even that much more.
Hmm. That's powerful. So you would you say then that strengths and needs are typically the same. Like,
Usually they're pretty
yeah.
close. Are. So like for example, there's a talent strength theme of WOO.
Okay.
It's an acronym, winning others over. There are just some people that are very natural. They love
Mm,
meeting new people. There's no such thing as a stranger to a
mm,
WOO. You know, everyone's a friend and they have
mm,
a way of being able to connect with others really easily. They crave that. They love being around people.
mm.
Well, that's also their need is to be around other people because like for example, imagine like going back to COVID when
Yeah.
we were isolated. I remember there were some of our fellow team members who
Yeah.
have Woo that were saying, "Man, this is so hard. I feel
Mm,
so lonely, so isolated from everyone else." And that made it really tough, you
mm,
know, and for some, you know, the depression kind of sat in as a result
mm,
because they were able to, in a sense, be themselves, be the best of themselves.
mm.
So, yeah, they definitely go. They're very closely related.
That's awesome. That's very helpful. I'm gonna take that away from this conversation and really try to apply that because I think that provides valuable insight, not only on the strengths but the needs side as well. And yeah, I remember that's a fun, not a fun, but a memory I will always remember is when you and I and the other members on the team were like in the meeting as we found out the university was shutting down
Yeah.
for COVID, and we're like, I guess we all go home now. And I was like, oh wow, this is real. This is happening now. And the months that followed that were, of course, very challenging for everyone, and especially those who needed that that contact, that support around them, like physically, that support around them. And so, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you were there to help them through that because I know it was a challenging time for everyone.
I don't know if I necessarily helped them with that. Here's the other beautiful thing, Noah. One of the reasons why I love being a coach is because I don't have all the answers.
Mm,
The thing that I love about coaching is the answers are already within you as my job is in a sense to help you see that within yourself and
mm,
bring it out. And that is empowering to be able to realize, wow, I had the answer all along and I can do this because who knows you better than yourself? Only
mm,
you know you, right? As well as you do. And so it's just taking that time, reflecting, and at times having someone like a coach who can ask the right questions, you know,
mm,
just like I'm sure Mary does with you at times when you're trying to figure something out, you go to your wife and you ask her, you know, you talk it through and she'll bring up things and then all of a sudden like little light bulbs go off, right? And you're like,
yeah.
I never thought of that. Or this is a great idea. I need to try this. And the thing is you were able to come up with it.
Mm. That's a good point. Having that third party perspective can help you find your own solutions. That's a very powerful point. Let's dive into that a little bit more. So tell me, for those listening, what exactly you do in the coaching world. Like we've talked about Clifton strengths, we've talked about strengths a lot. Like maybe explain a little bit about what you do in that space, and then maybe we can dive into some of the strengths I sent you. I took in preparation, I took the Clifton quiz survey. I don't remember the proper word for it, and I sent you the results. And I'd love to just get your thoughts on some of that, but let's first set some context in terms of what you love to do.
Okay. So, as a personal development coach, one of the things I just use the Clifton strengths as one of the tools that
Mm,
I help people. And again, I focus on personal development of helping people achieve goals, you know, set, you know, aspirations, things that they want to work towards, and help them discover through themselves how to be able to accomplish that. And so, as a coach, um, using the Clifton strengths, usually that's where we start with is I have them take the assessment, and then
mm,
we just kind of take a deep dive into each one of the strengths so that you could start recognizing it within yourself. Gallup, who's the organization that Clifton Strengths is housed in, they have a name for it. They call it name it, claim it, and aim it. So the first
Mm,
thing is naming it, which is the assessment. You get to see what those are. Claiming it is how is it yours personally? Because,
mm,
like I said, it's shaped by that strengths lens or by that lens of, your personal values, your beliefs, your experiences, and everything. And then how do you intentionally aim it
mm,
to help you accomplish what you desire in life, going after those big goals and dreams that you have? And so, as a coach, like I said, we go through that, spend some time helping you understanding what your needs are as
mm,
well for each of those particular strengths that you have. Because again, once you know them, then you're able to ask for them.
mm,
And then if you get it, then you're able to be in your flow zone and yeah, just take off in your performance. And then usually after that,
mm,
then it's like, okay, well, it's usually client driven. Where do you want to go from here?
mm,
Is there something that you want to particularly work on? And so I've had, right now I usually just work with students, but it's
mm,
figuring out things like, okay, it could be something like where do, or, um, oh, now I'm having a total
So, no
blank
worries.
or whatever
Uh,
else. But, it's whatever issues they may come to. So
yeah.
it's not necessarily something that will, like, for example, they may come and say, I just don't know what kind of major that I want to
Mm,
do. Well, this isn't necessarily a career assessment. However, if you know the things that you're good at, there are definitely career fields that will play to those strengths that you can therefore go and start exploring to see
mm,
if it's something that you will want to do in the
yeah.
long term for your career. So, like, for
Mm,
example, going back,
that's
when I
cool.
discovered that I love teaching, my number three strength is developer. Developers love seeing growth in others. They're kind of
Mm,
like the cheerleaders. And they're,
mm,
they're the ones that are telling you, you did so great. Look at this. You increased your long jump in an inch or whatever, or, you were able to write 5 words and now you're writing 7 words, And so they're the ones that are always like kind of cheering you on. They celebrate that progress that takes
mm,
place. Well, as a teacher, that's one of the things that I absolutely loved was pointing out and helping my students see their growth, no matter how small it was. Growth is growth. And
mm,
so, and that's what got me excited was to be able to sit with my students and say, look at what you've been able to do. And
yeah.
look at how, how far you've come. And you did this and you can continue to do this. And so, yeah, yeah, it's just something that really gets to me. Yeah. Anyway, all
I
right.
think that's no sorries. I think that's the beauty in like what you do is like you're able to find fulfillment in helping other people find their growth and their possibility and their strengths. And I think that's really cool. I think that says a lot about your character. You want to see people win. And I think that's fantastic. We live in a time where there's a lot of contention in the world. And I think we need more days. We need more people that want to see each other win. And I think that's fantastic. I also wanted to point out that, like I'm pretty openly a big critic of just like the self-help books and the 19-year-old coaches who have their own program online that if you pay 2.99 you're going to be a completely different person. And I feel like one of your greatest strengths is because you have that desire to see people win. It isn't just a reflection of, oh, okay, am I good at this? That's nice. It's like, okay, do something with that. Like these are your strengths. How do you apply that? And for me, that's like that connection that you taught me has been beyond beneficial. So maybe explain to me more how those two things connect. And then let's dive into a couple of my strengths. I want to be respectful of your time. But yeah, explain to me the difference between just understanding your strengths, but and then doing something with them.
Understand. Okay. So,
It's a big question.
no, it's okay. So, there are some. here's the tragedy thing. The tragic thing about the Clifton Strengths Assessment is
Mm.
not doing anything with it. You know,
Mm.
there's some that will take the assessment, they'll go through, they'll read, you know, what is written about the things that they're really good at, things, you know, that they may be on the lookout for. And they may think, oh, well, that's nice. And then they'll just kind of tuck it away in a
Yeah.
file somewhere and not do anything with it. Which is, and that kind of breaks my heart. Actually, it does
Mm.
break my heart. It doesn't kind of, because what it is I think of the assessment as like a very basic map
Mm.
of just a beginning foundation for you to be able to, one, better understand and see yourself in a much positive light of how great and unique you are.
Mm.
And it's only like scratching the surface of it. This is why when I coach, we take a deep dive into each of the strengths that the person has, because I want them to begin to really see and understand and begin to own it, so
Mm.
that they're like, okay, wow, that is, you know, this particular, that's my communication strength. I've always loved to tell stories, and now this makes sense. And because I
Mm.
love to tell stories, you know, like when I'm at family gatherings or whatever else, how can I now, knowing that, intentionally be able to use that? Maybe I use that in my career. Are there ways
Mm.
that I can, at my job, be able to tell stories?
Mm.
You know, isn't selling being able to tell a story? And so being able to
Mhm.
craft that in a way that comes very naturally to you. Like
Mm.
it doesn't take as much effort. And that's the thing. And so that's what's in, yeah, like I was saying, is pretty incredible of being able to then intentionally, once you know it and understand it and know what you need in order to have it fire on all cylinders, man, life is so fulfilling. It
Mm.
really is. I'm not saying that you're never going to have to do the hard things in life. Maybe
Right.
doing those things that you don't like budgeting or whatever else. But wouldn't you rather spend most of your time focusing on things that you love to do, you enjoy to do, versus feeling stuck and always doing
Mm.
the things where you feel like, man, is this really as good as it gets? Do I just need
Mm.
to put in my time and endure until the next thing? Or do I always need to constantly be looking for the next thing to hopefully find that one thing
Mm.
that would bring me joy? But if you're able
Mm.
to see it and know it within yourself, then you can apply it in so many other situations
Mm.
and gain that fulfillment.
Amazing. Amazing. I feel like so many ways that could benefit and help every business out there that's ever hired anyone, but also universities. And you've done a lot of work with universities doing that, which I think is very profound in the sense that it's true to who you are and your strengths, but then also like there's an enormous need for that in the academic world, I feel that of all their wonderful cherished virtues, there is a need to still focus on strengths and not just rooting out what can be improved. So thank you for
Right.
doing that.
Well, and here's the other thing. Even like academics, look at it this way, Noah. Like, let me use the example of the communication strength.
Yeah.
If someone had the communication strength, one of the attributes of the communication strength is, for some that have it, they process things out loud
Mm.
to help make sense of things. Versus if you have someone that has the intellection strength, they're ones that like to mull things over within their mind and
Mm.
kind of have that peace and quiet to really reflect and dig and, you
Mm.
know, be able to go deeper.
Mm.
So if you know, in academics, if you're like, oh, how do I help? You know, if it's always you, I just want you to think quietly, ponder, think about it. And yet that's not what comes naturally to you, where you're one like, no, I just got to get together with some people and let's just talk about it so I can better understand it. And man, once I do, I got it. I know how to apply it. I know what I've learned. Imagine the difference that would be for those that are going through school and being able to say, okay, I recognize that within myself. This is what I need.
Mm.
And then to be able to ask for that.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. I think for the sake of time, how about we dive into my first strength, relator, and
Okay.
I'd love to hear your take on it,
Okay. So let me give you a little bit more background really quick. So
please.
there's 34 themes, strength themes or talent themes, and they are kind of divided up into domains. A domain
Mm,
is kind of think of it's a group of strengths that share some very common characteristics, qualities about them. Relator is a strength that falls within the relationship building domain. And
mm,
so there are four domains. There's strategic thinking. And so there's talents that are within that. That's like, for example, one of yours is learner or
mm.
context. Very much, yeah, thinking about processes and
Yeah.
mulling things over. Then there's executing strengths. There are those that are just really good at getting things done,
Mm,
like the achiever strength. Once they start something, they have to see it through to the end and
yeah.
get it finished. And then there's influencing strengths, which bring passion and energy and are great at leading others, getting people behind them or behind a cause. And then
Mm,
there's relationship building strengths, which is creating environments and awareness of the people that are around them and being aware of their needs, their
mm,
emotions, um, yeah, the things that they need to be able to, uh, yeah, have a sense of contentment and joy,
mm,
or even being productive. So, relator is a relationship building strength. The very basic definition of relator, this is what Gallup says or has come up with just their little synopsis. You enjoy close relationships with others. You find deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal. Okay, so just with
awesome.
that,
Yeah.
Noah, any of those words particularly resonate with you?
I mean, all of it, especially the working with others to achieve a goal.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about that. What is it about working with others to achieve a goal that really resonates, that stands out to you?
Yeah. Oh man. I believe, yeah. A lot of it's funny that's my strongest, most prevalent strength, and a lot of my others are around executing. And I feel like one of the reasons that I really like the idea of working with a team to accomplish a goal is I know we're more likely to accomplish the goal. We're more likely to get it done. But then also I enjoy having quality over quantity in terms of relationships. Like I was never like the popular guy, but I really enjoy getting to know someone like personally. And that's actually one of the reasons I created this podcast because I have important people in my life like you who I don't get to talk to all that often, and I like having conversations about meaningful and impactful things. So I say
Okay,
that's why it resonated.
that's awesome. Can you think of an example just recently where you've seen that come into play?
Mm. At work right now, I'm helping with a go-to-market campaign. And to achieve that, I have to work basically cross collaborate with other departments, other team members, and I really enjoyed it. It is a cool project to be on, but more so because of the collaboration that's been needed. And I've been able to have conversations with several different people on the project, and we're all focused on a singular goal. And that's been really fulfilling for me.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And you can hear this is the other thing about strengths is they never work in isolation. So as you even
Mm,
pointed out, where you have so many other executing strengths,
yeah,
executing is all about achieving the goal, hitting the destination,
yeah.
crossing the finish line. And so your relator strength of those relationships, of those few deep relationships that,
Mm,
as you said, like think of it as like a mini tribe of people that you have around you to
yeah.
help you accomplish those things. It's not just anyone, but there's those
Yeah.
few that you go to that you really trust.
Mm.
So what I would do next, and I don't know if we have that much time, but on your report, I just printed it out. But normally
Yeah.
what we would, sorry, my background's all blurred. But
It's
what we would
okay.
do is we would go through and under your relator strength, this is something that I want people to realize is based upon how you answered those 177 questions, your answers are going to be unique,
Mm.
meaning that you can find another person with relator and what the information that they give on that particular Clifton strength of relator is going to be a little bit different. One, because the assessment takes
Mm.
into account the other top strengths that you have and how they impact. Like you said, like for you, it would be
Oh,
your executing. And so what we would do is we would just go through each of those little paragraphs and I have you, read it out loud, underline it. We talk about, okay, what is it that resonates? I'd ask you the question, like, for example, on your last one about working together with a team to accomplish the goal. One of the things I would ask is, well, what do you need from the other people in order to do that? What resources as well do you need to do that?
mm.
Because again, just as we talked about earlier, you're able to give and get into that A plus zone and have that tremendous output, but there's conditions, there's things that you need in order to be able to get to that point. So, is it you get to hand select the people that are on that, team to help you accomplish that goal, people that you
Yeah.
have those deep, strong relationships with, that's where a coach would help you find what
Oh,
exactly it is for you. So then you're able to better articulate that later when you're asked to do something and say, okay, well, this is what I need. Can I get that?
mm. Gave
So,
me goosebumps. Yeah. Coach Dave, everyone.
oh,
That's fantastic. Thank you.
that's
Yeah.
just, yeah. Next time
Okay.
we meet, as we talked about
Yeah.
doing this in person,
Yeah.
we'll have to do, actually, we don't even have to
Yeah.
wait till then, Noah. You and I will have to do it any other time.
Okay. I think that'd be great. That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, for those listening, if they would like to contact you to do some coaching, how can they find you?
The best place is on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So it's just Dave Nagata, Nagata. You can
Okay.
find me there and just message me, and I'd be glad to reach back out to you. But it's exciting, and I love being on this journey with everyone that comes along. Even just now, Noah, I'm looking at your other ones, and I'm like, I can't wait to discuss these other ones with you because
Yeah.
it, well, yeah, they're just amazing. And
Thank you.
I've seen these things come through. Here's the other thing I encourage my clients to do is once they go through and they read it, sometimes it's still hard to believe it about ourselves and be like, I don't see that.
Mm.
Take a copy of your results and share it to others that are close to you. So, like, maybe share a copy to Mary, have her
Mm.
read it and underline things that she's seen in you, and have her maybe
Oh,
jot a word or two of when she's seen that in you, to
yeah.
give examples and then talk about it. Talk about a powerful thing within a relationship of
Wow.
really understanding, your significant other is I see all this greatness in you, and this is
Yeah.
where I've seen it. And I've told you that so many different times, but you haven't always believed me. But it's here. It's here.
That's a brilliant idea. I think I will do that. I'll probably do that tonight. I will show her my report and I'll set her up so she can take the test too, because I think or the assessment. That's powerful. That's powerful. Well, thank you, Dave, for
Oh,
being on the
thank you,
Why Not
Noah.
podcast. Thank you for all that you do and the impact you're driving in education in your personal life and you've been very impactful to me. So thank you so much and
Oh,
I really appreciate it. I have one concluding question that I ask all my guests.
okay.
And that is, what does happiness mean to you?
There's so much of what happiness means to me. I would have to say, well, right now, there's a lot of my family things going on. So right now, I'd say Happiness to me right now is watching my children learn, grow through failures and successes, and
Mm,
watching them discover who they really are. It's an amazing thing, to sit back and watch and to see. And can you imagine if we all took that same lens and were able to see each other in that
mm,
particular way of, oh, look at, and again, this is my strength lens, my developer coming through of,
of course.
look at all the things that you can do and have done, and let's just celebrate that, and how can we help,
Mm.
move things forward? Yeah, it gives me goosebumps. So I would say that's one of the things that brings me happiness right now is it's just with my kids, my wife, my family.
That's so cool.
I have to
That's
say one more
fantastic.
thing really
Yeah,
quick, Noah.
please. Of course,
This
please.
gives me happiness. Reconnecting with you, and I have to say thank you for doing this,
Oh, of course.
for allowing your light, your gifts and talents to come through in creating this podcast. I've listened to your other episodes and the people that you've
All
invited
right.
on, and it's been incredible. They've had incredible stories to share. And imagine if, yeah, it's because of you and
Oh,
you doing this that allows that to happen. And it just
mm,
creates ripples. You never know the influence that you have, but you
mm.
definitely have influence. So keep it up.
Thank you. Felt that one. It's very kind of you, and I appreciate it. I There were so many times where I almost started doing things like this, and I said, no, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. I'm not qualified. And then I started thinking about all the wonderful people in my life, and it's like, who cares if I feel insecure? There's good people out there that I know that have good stories to share. So what you said really means a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm.
You are so
Wow.
welcome. This has
That's
been
the
awesome, Noah.
Thank you so much. That's the Why Not podcast. That is what this is all about. And thank you, Dave. And we'll connect again very soon. And I'll put your LinkedIn in the description of this podcast so people can reach out for coaching. And thank you so much.
And we got to do lunch soon.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to
Okay.
happen. Lunch on me.
Sounds good.
Okay. Have a good weekend, Dave. Thank
You
you.
too.